Yeah, with me today is Brother Joseph Lambert of Research Lodge, Oregon, 198, Ancient Free and Accepted Masons. And we're going to ask him a few questions here. We're at the Scottish Rite Building, downtown Portland, Oregon. This is where the Research Lodge of Oregon meets. And if I'm not mistaken, I think our Research Lodge is the oldest in the United States. Yeah, yeah, I think so. So
It's
anyway,
the second oldest.
the second oldest in the
Right.
world, right?
Yes. In the United
Oh,
States.
in the United States, the
Yes.
second oldest.
Right.
I got you. Okay, so Brother Joseph, um, tell me about your early days.
Ah. Oh, sure, Brother Nate. Well, you know that I'm from Guyana. Guyana is the top of South America, born and raised in Guyana. Um, and briefly, it's a former British colony, um, and ethnically, racially mixed. They're black people and a lot of South Asians. They're equally divided between the South Asians and the black people. And as a colony, the British were always at the apex of the triangle. The British, and I just try to shorten this. But as a kid, the big thing about it is, as a kid, the reasons for as a country boy, I should say, they running around and when did I have ambitions? And that started with looking around and seeing who are the people I want to aspire to be. And as I looked around, there was the chief of police was a black man. The head of the school was a black man. As I got just past my early teens and I started to move from the country to the city, it's I start to feel that I when I become an adult I would like to be this or that. And these idols were always never white people, even though I know that the governor was a white man, an Englishman, and I know the superintendents and different. They were there, but not not in a way to interfere with my projecting where I can lead to. So when I got to the United States later on in my life, or even to England, I did not have a role model set in me to be like a white man. It was always to be like Mr. Prophet, Dr. D'Souza, the shops and all of that. This was my background, and then got on a mixed cargo boat, and went pretty late. Pretty late. I got in 1958. Left Guyana and went into England, and that's a whole long story. Non-Masonic background, navigating in London, and that was something totally different. And when we have enough time, I can sit down and tell you what the years in London were like from a young man from Ghana getting off of a mixed cargo ship, cargo and passengers. But that's for another time. Let's keep it Masonic. Okay. Well, that's about it. I'm now in England, and I went back to Guyana now, and after 10 years, got back with a wife and children now, and the little boy from the country is now in a managerial position with a degree from London. And then is when the ambition started. What would I going to be? I'm a manager now. I'm not a little running around. And I had good jobs, and then finally I left. I needed to leave, and I didn't want to get into why I needed to leave Guyana. But it was a moment of great disappointment for me going to London, acquiring high level education. And I should tell you that. Apologize. Before I left Guyana, I apologize for skipping this out. Masonry was equivalent to the fellas, for me, the fellas in my eyes who were successful. And I decided there and then that I wanted to be a Mason. Because now I'm back, I'm wiser, I suppose, and I wanted to be where the successful people are. And I petitioned the lodge and I became a Mason, thankfully. And I was raised in 1973 as a Mason, as a Master Mason in Guyana. I got to the rank of Senior Deacon when I left Guyana. I never was a Master in Guyana. And so here I am, and that gives you a bit of my early life.
So, looking back on your early life in Guyana, how was the culture there? When you were young, did you talk to, communicate and hang out with a lot of white people, or was it all black
No, no, no,
communities?
no, 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 no. I did not. That's the point I should have, I think, made. They were there, as I said earlier. But what I read and perceived when I got to masses of white people came later on in my life. I knew, and then Guyana was not a tourist destination like the other islands. People in Jamaica and Barbados, it lent itself because of the white sands, the beaches. There were a greater profusion of whites. Guyana was set in the mainland, and we were spared from the number of that. So I until I went to England, I did not have fluent interaction with white people. So that's the difference between a Barbadian young black man, a Jamaican young black man, and a Guyana young black man. Saw them, interacted with them, but not as frequently. Okay.
Okay. So, do you know when and where you became a Master Mason?
Yeah, well, I need to give you a little background to that. I do remember that very vividly. I do remember that very vividly. And I don't feel any embarrassment at all. I was not concerned in any way, to be honest, about surveying and all the great tenets of Masonry. Good men making them better, and that was not my. I was ambitious. And I thought that socially, as I did say it, but you probably didn't hear it, I just wanted to be where the people I perceived to be other black men and South Asians, the doctors and the lawyers. I just opportunistically wanted to be like one of them, and I perceived that a lot of them, and I could hear, a lot of them that I respected and aspired to achieve were Masons. And that was, I set my focus. I would like to be a Mason, to be among those successful brothers. So, well, those days they were men. This was my focus, to be like one of them.
So you had become a Master Mason, and then you moved to the U.S.?
But if I may, yes, I moved. But if I may, now that I'm in the United States, it's a big jump. I wanted to interject something here, Nate, Jeff. It's you know, you are a Master Mason. You are a past master, my good brother. You know the memorization that is necessary in the Oregon jurisdiction. The massive amount of memorization before you prove up. I marvel so many times to prove up. When I look, I have the standard manual of Freemasonry in the Scottish Constitution. It's just this little book. And this is all the 3 degrees. And memorization was so much less burdensome than here. But I got to point out to you, it's easy, most masonry work in the Scottish Constitution done in the 1st degree. So from very early, you sit down in lodge and you watch how masons are performing. You did not have to prove up, but you had to know it. You had to find a way to learn it piece by piece. No, suddenly you proved up and then you're now a master mason. But again, we don't have installing masters in when I was in Guyana. As you go through the stations, you go through your stations and places. You learn the appropriate ritual for the different stations. But if you're so blessed as to make your way to become a master mason, and then to get to the east, you do not have installing officers. You do not get to the east unless after installation the master installs all his officers. So you see, in the end, you have it easy to start with. But in the end, you better learn the work as you go along. Because you're not getting to the east. You're not getting to the east until you have memorized all the stations and places. And until you are able to install your men, your officers. Because there's no place. And I don't know what's happened now, if they've evolved out of my consciousness. But that's one of the main differences. The memorization and how you apply it.
Well, it's definitely a progressive
step.
Yeah.
But you participate in lodge because unless when the Grand Master is coming, the lodge is raised to the Grand Master does not enter and he visits a district lodge. He does not enter a lodge unless it's in the Master Mason. So all the lodge is raised, and anybody below the rank of Master Mason is leaving, while the lodge is raised to the Master Mason. You enter the Grand Master and his retinue, then the lodge is lowered, and we come back in. But apart from welcoming the Grand Master, everything else.
Was the Grand Master in Guyana? Was he the Grand
Right.
Master of all or do they have different districts too?
Thank you for that question. The Grand Master in the Scottish Constitution he is the Grand Master in Scotland, and you got thousands of district lodges. Here, your Grand Master, each state has its Grand Master. But they're the Grand Master there. And so, very rarely, I think probably once in my life, I saw the Grand Master while I was a Mason. When he visits, he would come down to the rest of the Caribbean, different parts. But every district, every country had a district Grand Master. So when I thank you for pulling me up, because what I knew was the district Grand Master. And when he visited, so thank you for reminding me to make a difference between the district Grand Master and the big boy in Scotland who rarely shows his face.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, that's good. The Freemasonry, how does it compare to the Freemasonry in Oregon to the Freemasonry in Guyana? Was it completely different, kind of the same, or?
Yes and no. because the signs, the words are the same, or is it not masonry? The passwords, and there are a little bit of extra flourishes for the first degree sign and a little more flourish. But as we know, no matter how you start off for the for the penal side in the first degree, you can do what you like, but you got to end up doing something, or it's not not a penal sign. In the second degree, you can put your hand wherever you want to. But if your hand don't get across your breast and move it apart, then it's not the sign. And when you get to the third degree, no matter what you shake your hands or whatever you do, if that arm doesn't come across your stomach, it did not. So it's all the same. The penal signs are all the same, notwithstanding whatever. And the word is it's the same, no matter what how the lodge is dressed up. So there was comfort in knowing that we all do the same thing. But I would like you to, I don't know if you want to hear this, but it was very interesting to me when word got out that there was a Mason and I was a Mason. And by chance, and I started to think now, what do I do to get into, to become a Mason? Because there was, for a couple of years, I was a black man in Oregon, a member of the Grand Lodge of Scotland, but I was forbidden to associate with Prince Hall. You can understand the predicament, because here am I, a black man. I got a letter in my pocket that tells me, Brother Joseph, be careful when you get to the United States, because the Grand Lodge of Scotland, of which you're a member, is not in amity with the Prince Hall Lodge. So not because you're a black man and you get invited by another black man to go to his lodge, I'd like you to remember that you can't do that. And that was a contradiction to me. Here am I, a black man, forbidden to go to a Prince Hall Lodge because of the Scottish Constitution. And that's a very interesting story, Jeff. Very interesting, navigating my way into Masonry. That would be a whole other story. Right?
I would like to get into that story. Not now, but
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind having a series of discussions with you. I'm curious about your time in England and France, and
Oh,
when
man.
we get more time.
Yes, okay, I understand
we'll
that.
Sit down and
Yeah.
talk about that. But,
Right.
And do you want to talk about your moving to the United States? Did you go immediately to Oregon, or did you live somewhere else?
I did. I did when I arrived in the United States. But I'm just going to tell you what I'm going to. I arrived, and remember this, London, trained for 10 years, moved to the Guyana, raised my family, and I should have been there forever until the great architect called me. And then I was in a distressed state of mind and moved to the United States. And that is not a Masonic thing, that's political. So I arrived in New York, and where I was with family and so on. But then I didn't feel, I love New York to visit, I still do. But it was too busy, and I thought by chance I knew a man living in Portland, Oregon. And I was curious enough to come take a look to see what's happening. And this was in the early 80s, to visit Oregon and see what it's like. And I fell in love with Oregon right away. And I was not a Mason. But that's another story if you want to find out to me. How will I become a Mason in Oregon? Nice, interesting story, Jeff. And I found a way, but if you want me to describe it now or later or when, I don't know.
Okay, but how was your time in New York?
It was amongst family, but as I said, it was too busy and there was not enough green.
Did you visit any lodges while you were living there?
You want me to confess that I broke the rule?
Oh, no. We don't need
You really want to break the rule?
yeah, yeah.
I know I'm not supposed to have visited, but I have to. Don't blame me for this. I had to go visit a Prince Hall Lodge, even though I was not supposed to.
Did you visit any regular Masonic lodges in New York?
No, as I said, no, I did not. I repeat.
I know
I
there's a lot of Masonic history
Yeah,
in New
yes, I
York and
did.
Newark.
I never. Oh, later on in the last 10 years, I visited in New York. But I mean, that's that. I was trying to chronologically explain that I was in the wilderness for a long time because in New York I'm not supposed to visit any lodge, and Masonically I was not active at all until I came out here. And it's the path to being active is, I consider, very fascinating, because one of the things I got to tell you Deb, is it's I had formed an opinion early. I had so much of fun, fun in terms of the social side of masonry. When you when we have a statement in Ghana on the weekends, when you meet brothers of like mind, and then you meet with a bottle of scotch on a Saturday afternoon with no agenda, but the discussion is always enlivening. And when you meet your peers and men of a certain caliber, but I miss that. And masonry for me has a lot to do with a select group of people, broad-minded, intelligent, helpful, and at the end of the laughing and the tipping a shot here and there, you leave the association with the men, with the brothers, enlivened. And that for me is a big part of masonry, and the fellowship. 50% is the ritual work, the reminder of what you're supposed to do, but the other 50% was sustenance amongst the right type of people. And you leave after interacting, you leave enlightened and stimulated. I like that part of masonry. And I don't know if we got time now to talk about this. I'm looking back, remember now, it's so hard now remembering, and there's a lot of inconsequential little things, but it was a very interesting path for me to know. And the first black, as long as I can remember, nobody has said otherwise. I don't know that there's another black man in the state of Oregon who's become master of a lodge. I don't know. And it's not the negative part of it. I really have had a lot of backing from some good brothers. And Jeff, one of the things that I want to remember is, please don't let it be said, please don't let it be said that I am the person, Joseph Lambert is the person who integrated masonry here. I just arrived when there was already a nucleus of brothers. And I think of Jack Armstrong. I think of Al Philbrick. These are all gone to the great beyond. There was already Greg Estelle's father. There was already a movement afoot to recognize Prince Hall. I was just lucky to arrive in Oregon, and the word went out that there was a black man here. But nobody thought that I was ambitious, but I was ambitious. And to join and galvanize that movement towards recognition. So I was lucky to arrive at the right time. I was lucky to fall in the hands of the right set of white masons who were ready to use me, willing to be used as an example of why masonry should integrate it. But it sounds as if I'm just preaching, and because I'm an old man, I enjoy it. I am lucky and I enjoy it.
Sure, but you've had some experiences in some lodges that were not as friendly or receptive
Yes.
to people of color. And,
Well, yeah, okay, I need to say that, and I need to be honest and say I didn't suffer. And I did not suffer. And but they, but you know something, Jeff? I really have to point out Fairview Lodge. I can't remember the number at Fairview Lodge, but you can find the date and the Grand Master. You'll find that out. But Jack Armstrong invited me, a willing tool. I enjoyed it, to bring me a master mason, to use me as a tool, willing tool, to say, Brother Joseph, there is going to be the Grand Master's name. He was a Marine, I was told, Colonel in the Marine, okay. He was visiting, his official visit at Fairview Lodge. Jack Armstrong, they were one of the leaders in trying to integrate Masonry. He said, Brother Joseph, I want you to get ready to come with me to Fairview Lodge. And the word, I arrived early, and I saw they left me outside, and fortunately it was raining. And before the opening, the Grand Master was standing on the porch of the lodge before the gavel. And I heard rumblings and whatever. And Jack Armstrong told me subsequently that the master for Fairview Lodge, I must get the year and find out the name of the master, but I remember it because I did not feel insulted at all. But, okay. And the master for that lodge, Roland Gleason. Roland Gleason was the Grand Master. And the Grand Master asked Jack Armstrong, after having heard that the master for the Fairview that year said, that black man is not coming into the lodge. The Grand Master asked Jack Armstrong, whatever, I don't know. Jack Armstrong, who was ready, was able to show Lodge Alpha number 1594 at the Grand Lodge of Scotland, was in amity with the Grand Lodge of Oregon, and they were whispering, and the Grand Master was satisfied that I'm a Master Mason from a recognized lodge in Guyana. And the Grand Master I heard the Grand Master, I heard him whispering, if the Master does not allow me to get into the lodge, he would leave with the charter of that lodge. And I pretended to be hurt, but I was enjoying it. I pretended, bluffing, that I was hurt. But it was, I got so many stories enjoying being used.
but used in a good way.
Used in a very good way, but I enjoyed it. But getting other lodges accustomed to the fact of having a black man in there, not to clean, but to be one of them. right, is it? I really enjoy that very much.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk a little bit about your joining Research Lodge?
Well, I like what was happening in Research Lodge, and then after the other visiting, I really visited, and people get to hear about me, and then I just happened to get to know Leon Savior. I like the way it was configured, Research Lodge. I like the way that they did not do degree work. There were papers being read, and it was more concentration on the esoteric part of Masonry, the esoteric discussions that were going on, and rather than just the ritual of making masons and the repetitive degree work. So I got attracted to the Research Lodge in the beginning for the emphasis on esotericism. And the petitioning, but this is something like a lot of fun. but I'm laughing because you don't know what I'm laughing at. I'm laughing to see how I allowed, even becoming a member of Research Lodge, it was some members decided to do that. And I got to tell you this part of the story because I had a lot of fun with that. The master was Leon Sayer. What year was that? You have to look up what year Leon Sayer was master. And I petitioned. And you know what Leon did? A short man with a thundering voice. Leon had me, Brother Lambert, I had visited a couple of times, but I'm applying for membership. And Leon had me agreeing to be the speaker that same night that I was going to be voted in to be a member. And opening large, sickness and distress, whatever. And then at petition, they were going to vote on my petition the very night where I was to be the main speaker. And I don't know if there were a lot of members. I think there were about 30 members, including all the past grandmasters. I don't know the machination that went on in Brother Leon's head to put me down to be the main speaker, to be the speaker, the same night when the petition was going to be voted on. So I was asked to go outside, of course. He read the petition. And the senior deacon was about to make sure to vote. Remember, I was asked to leave, as usual. And I was standing outside the door when I heard a thundering voice of the master saying, "Brother Junior Warden, how do you find the ballots in the South?" And when the junior warden said, "Clear in the South," Brother Jeff, I want to tell you, I could not believe that this little old face, that a tear ran down my cheek when I heard the terms clear. And you know why I was so emotionally touched by it? Because the only vote in Masonry that is unanimous is for membership. There is no other vote in Masonry that is unanimous. All other votes is by majority, different majorities. And when I look at some of the members who, when he said clear, I was sure that a certain member who hardly laughed, hardly said anything to me, I was sure that he would blackball me. And when the junior warden said clear in the South, it's very tearful for me that you don't judge a book by its cover. You don't look at a Mason's face and say, "I'm sure he doesn't like black people." You don't know. And it was very touching for me that. So I became a member. And the rest is history. I've been master 5 times at this lodge.
Well, you're very well loved.
I did. Yeah. Right, it was excellent.
Do you have any advice that you'd like to give people thinking about joining Freemasonry or Masons who?
Yes. Well, it's not join Freemasonry because I make a distinction between joining Freemasonry and advancing in Freemasonry. Whether joining the let's talk about that for a second. The man out there and who's showing interest of getting into these, like I way back in Guyana when I wanted to be a member, at that basic level, you got to be curious. You got to be eyeing off the men who are Masons and how they behave. I can only use myself as an example. But then the second part is once you pass the test, which is you get the investigation committee and you can't be a wife beater and a liar and perjurer and you cannot be somebody who cannot be trusted and hope to get into Masonry. So the mechanism of inquiry takes care of that. But my advice is once you're a member, how do you advance in Masonry? I prefer to respond to that. How do you advance when you're a member? But according to my playbook, I know that because the memorization, you have to memorize whatever ritual you have to do, no matter what position you're in, what place or station, whatever ritual, make sure you know what you have to do very well. Number one. Number two is my playbook is that you got to be able to stand up at the end of the lodge and speak. A man who never speaks, I don't know, how do we know? You got to either influence, or if you don't influence, then you at least be receptive. And you have to be of a certain ability to be able to lead. So I'm looking off, as I said, I'm responding to your question in terms of the good member who might want to advance. You know your part. No excuse for me. No excuse. It's an irritation for me to know repeatedly a man who has a part to learn and can't put the time to learn it properly. The few words. Why are you in the east? Why are you at the door? Whatever. Say it properly. Learn it. Learn to, I'm watching to if I have to vote for you. To speak audibly and clearly, that people can understand you. And I repeat myself, those are the basics. To be able to listen, and everybody's different. My brother Jeff, I like you. I say that without any inhibition or embarrassment. Nothing wrong with me saying I like you and I respect you. I don't want to know what color underwear you wear, but I know that you're different. But I must be able to take your word. I must be able to see how you treat your family. Are you a man who can carry your load? Can you speak clearly? Those are how you advance. You advance by respecting the ritual, knowing what you have to do. And the rest will take care of itself. So it's very simple. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I like that. That's very well put. Before we close out, would you like to say anything to your family who may have supported you over the years?
Oh, I don't know if supported me is the word, Brother Jeff. I get teased and laughed at a lot. Because you're funny you say that. I don't want to minimize this by laughing, but it's pity you said that because my lady is always telling me she knows all the words and she knows all the handshakes and and all that. But if they were not supportive, they gotta enjoy your friends. I'm come back to this now. Here's the support. That if you become a Mason, It's not a burden because you take your burden home, you know. You take your worry home. If this organization, every time you have to do something, it's a, you're not enlivened by being there or stimulated. It's not going to rub off on the when you get home. It's going to rub off, and you got to take good vibes home, and you got to bring good vibes. So it helps you to understand the sacrifice that the family is making just to be supportive of you. So the mutuality of you not taking grief home, and that when you leave home to come to lodge, you're not bringing grief with you. And it's that mutual behavior that the organization benefits from a happy Mason, and a happy Mason, or a happy, not burden, takes that same feeling of well-being home. So that's what I feel that is my interpretation of how you support the family, because the family is putting up with a lot of you talking to yourself, memorizing. And I'm laughing because I tend to talk to myself in the bathroom when I'm learning or memorizing.
Yeah.
Writing. So I didn't want to memorize, but I enjoy masonry, and I think to really get the best out of it, you got to enjoy it. And then you got to make your luck, because I met some good support along the way. And the kind of support that I get, that I was able to ignore. I was able to ignore insults wherever it was cast my way. I hope I've satisfied you, but I only give you my perspective.
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up here, and we can continue another day.
All right.
I would like to, sit down for at least one more, maybe two more interviews, and get some more information about, your trip. You're living in London, England, and in France, and those are actually fascinating stories, even though they're non-Masonic.
Well, you better be careful. I might dig up some stories that you might not want to hear. I don't know.
Well, we shall see, my friend.
Okay, my brother.
With me today has been Worshipful Brother Joseph Lambert of Research Lodge number 198 here in Oregon.
Yeah.
And we're signing off, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome, my brother. You're very welcome. Thank you too.